I've come up with a way to totally eradicate this whole idea of rejection in sales. If it's over at hello, how the heck are you going to succeed in selling? You've got to rise above that and change your mindset.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Stump The Guru Show. My name is Ari Galper, and we are here today to talk about trust-based selling. If you don't know much about who I am or my work, for the last 20 years, I've specialized in this unique niche called trust-based selling, how to basically remove rejection, remove chasing people, remove all the pain of selling as we know it. And I work with thousands of people over the years to help them simplify the most complex sales scenarios. And this is our live show we do once a month where you can come in the queue whenever you like. Just go to stumptheguru.com, click that link. It'll take you in the queue for today's show. And I'll pick on you to come on live and ask me questions. Stump the Guru. Ask me your toughest sales questions today. We're live all over the world on every social media channel as we speak. There are now people queuing up. I can see in our software here, people asking us questions today. We have a couple already in the door. So again, if you want to come in, ask me a question live, anything you've got in terms of sales scenario, you're chasing somebody, any blockage you have at all in selling, I'm here to answer those questions for you live in this show. So just go to stumptheguru.com and click that link, and you have a chance to ask me live. If you want to work with me privately or ask me a private question or have a one-on-one chat with me privately or about your sales team, just go to unlockthegame.com/free consult. It's at the bottom of the screen there, and fill the application out. We'll have a chat privately. So let's get on the show today, and we'll go into the queue here and see who just came on in. Again, you want to get in the queue, get in line, just go to stumptheguru.com, click the link, and I'll choose you to come in live. So Steve, you want to pull the first person in today who's in our queue? That'd be great. Welcome. Hi, Jeff. Your sound's a bit off for some reason. I'm not sure why. It got a little muffled all of a sudden. Yeah, it's just. Try it again. Maybe do a test. There's some issue with the sound. Not sure what that is. Maybe without that. Maybe it's just garbled. Maybe you take the headset off or something, or try another way. If not, you can.
Is it better now?
Yeah, there we go. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
First time on the software, so.
No worries. So why don't you let everyone know kind of what you do and what your challenge is today, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so my name is Jeff Woodard. I'm a financial advisor in South Carolina, United States. And I primarily look at retirement plans for people 55 plus. And that's my specialty. Help people get to a safe, secure, and improve their taxes for their retirement.
All right, that sounds good. So share with us what your situation is, your challenges today that you'd like some insights on.
Okay, so I met with a couple a few weeks ago face-to-face. We had a nice meeting. Now I know there's a lot of different opinions out there about annuities, but they are a lifetime income source, and they don't fit everybody.
Sure.
But they were a great option for this couple. And I mean, I'm a specialist. I do this for years. And, I looked at it and said, hey, have you considered this? And they really hadn't. He was open to it and interested, and we had quite a nice discussion. She sat there like this, arms crossed, started reading her email. She had a computer in front of her. And so we talked about it, and we had a nice talk, and he was really asking me a lot of good questions, and I was doing my best to answer it, and she's sitting there like this.
Did you happen by a chance to ask her what she feels about the conversation, or check with her?
Yes, yes, I did. I said, I mean, I'm not going to mince words. I mean, we're sitting across at the kitchen table, and I said, it looks like you're not interested, you're not bought in, you're not, well, the answer was, my mother had a bad experience.
Right.
So that's personal. So I probably should have asked more about that bad experience right then. However, I think he interrupted and said, well, this is different. And so the conversation took a different turn.
Okay, so let's just stop for a second there. Your intuition is right. So what can happen is if you don't address the elephant in the room at that moment, it ends up dragging down the wrong direction. So in retrospect, if we can roll the tape back, yeah, so she's there, arms crossed. She says to you, I had a bad experience. Even I think what happened was you felt like he was interested, so you kind of focused your energy back to him, as opposed the ideal thing would have been to stop everything right there and then and to say to her, let's just hold off for a moment then. Can you share with me a little bit about what happened with your mother, what the experience was, so I can understand what you're thinking is before we even consider the idea of moving forward at all?
Yep. And that's, this is rewound in my head 100 times since since I knew we were going to be doing this on this Stump the Guru. And I thought, that's probably it. And it's always interesting, 2020 hindsight, right? But
of course.
The good news is he's still interested. We're going to meet again. We were meant to meet Friday, but it'll be next Friday.
Okay.
So I think we'll meet again face to face. So I think the recovery is probably, tell me, but it's, hey, before we go anywhere, let's discuss, right?
Yes. So your goal now is to get to the truth of what has not been brought up yet, which will be a roadblock for you along the way if you don't address it now. So if you can get a meeting again with him and possibly her again, what I'd probably do is start the meeting with focusing on her and say, look, I've been thinking about our conversations and you pull the plug and you say, I'm not quite comfortable moving us forward towards this direction yet until I fully really understand what your experience was with annuities and your mother experience was, so I can understand what your concerns are and address those first before we consider moving forward, because I don't want to move things forward unless you're comfortable. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah. Perfect. I like it.
And just stop the momentum right there and have it all come out. And I will tell you, it's not easy to have the courage to do that sometimes, because we have someone who wants to buy and someone who doesn't want to buy. Our intuition is to focus on the person who wants to buy. And we just kind of use the hopium. We hope that person convinces the other person to do it. But the reality is we have to address everything in front of us and not be afraid to get the truth. And that's why you have permission now to stop any process you're in with somebody when you sense any hesitation. And really get the bottom where they're at and clear the decks before you even consider moving forward, because it's the only way for you to feel comfortable knowing that this is going to happen. Because I don't want you to go into these processes kind of hoping it will happen, but knowing something might stop it, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And, when I walked out of there, I did talk to her and I said, let's before I left, we were standing by the door actually. And I remember I said, well, let's make sure that you're comfortable. So I did at least open that door. Good. And I said, I want to make sure that you're okay, because it's clear you're not. I didn't mince words. I said, it's clear you're not. So I think I have perfect entree to do that. Yes. And I think I just needed here today. It's a classic sales situation for people in my business, because
yes,
what happens is sometimes, I make all the decisions, and then you find out they don't. And I was in corporate sales as well, and we know that a lot of times people will say they make the decisions, yet they don't.
And also, when you do talk with them again, you talk with her, spend some time really understanding what went wrong and what they bought, obviously, and what the miscommunication was, then address what the actual issue was. Then you can say, oh, I see. Now I understand what went wrong with that situation. What happened was X. And you identify and address the actual problem that occurred. And then you can say, well, we are very aware of that, and we do not do any of that. So you can really sort of pinpoint the exact problem went wrong in the process with her mother.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So get into the detail. Go drill into it, you're saying.
Don't be afraid to go down the iceberg with her As you know, the iceberg means going down below the problem. To get the truth of what really happens, you can address the actual mistake that occurred with whether previous advisor, whatever it was, and then you can say, right, now I understand what went wrong with that. And you can address it so that she knows that you are very aware of this not ever happening again, and you are very understanding of what went wrong.
Yep.
That's how you plug up that hole with her there.
Okay, that's great. Now, this is recorded. I'd like to hear the wording.
Yeah, absolutely. We're recording this. It's going to be on our show page. You'll get a copy of this, no problem. Everybody can watch this repeatedly on our archives.
I hope it helps somebody. So that's great. Thanks, Ari. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Fantastic. So that was our first guest on our show today, everybody. Welcome to Stump the Guru. If you're just chiming in now, this is your chance to jump on live. Come in the queue. Just go to stumptheguru.com. Go to that link in your browser. It'll take you into the queue for the show here, and I'll select you to come forward to ask me a live question on our call. These shows are really about helping you, giving you value, because sometimes you can be in a sales situation that's complicated, or you love a response or an answer for. So you don't end up chasing what I call a ghost. Someone doesn't call you back. And to get a live answer here on this show, we'll give you a chance to go use it, get a result, and let us know how it goes. So I do a lot of private coaching, consulting with clients on a fee basis. And this is your chance to ask me a question live on a public basis on this show once a month. So if you want to get in the queue, again, go to stumptheguru.com, and we'll pull you in to the show. And then I think we have another person in the queue here waiting in line, and we'll bring him onto the show. There we go. Welcome.
Ari, how are you today?
Excellent. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Great.
My name's Kerry Mensier, and I'm a retired San Diego Police Department sergeant. I did 30 years in law enforcement, and I have a unique and innovative training where I teach law enforcement officers how to communicate better with the public in order to increase trust and reduce violence. I wrap in neuroscience, personality science, core human needs, things that are not being taught anywhere in law enforcement training today. And I've packaged this under de-escalation training, how to take someone who's in an emotionally overwrought state and be able to calm them down. Right. My problem is this. When I contact law enforcement agencies about this training, the typical response is, oh, we've already had de-escalation training, or we developed our own in-house training, or we had this amazing program where we brought in a trainer from the outside last year. They did a great job. The reviews are great. We're going to stay with them. And I've struggled with how to bring the points of the program that I have that are unique, that I know are not covered in the other trainings, so that they can see there's value in spending some time and looking at the program that I offer. I think that there's a parallel with any B2B sales where someone, a company or a provider, has a unique way of approaching things, and the company that they're talking to thinks they've already solved that problem, and they therefore they don't have that problem anymore because that solution was quote unquote good enough, or maybe even great in their eyes. They've checked the box for that solution, not knowing that there's a far better solution out there. So thanks for your help and advice. It's always a pleasure hearing your point of view.
Sure. Well, that's a very common objection, which is when someone says to you, we're using somebody else. And the typical model for that is to try to overcome that, to try and convince them that you're better. But in our trust-based approach, when we get an objection coming our direction, that's pressure. We don't try to overcome the objection because we can break the relationship there. Instead, our goal is to diffuse or re-engage. And so there's two approaches I have for you here. The first approach is if they say to you, we're using somebody else, what you first want to say is this. You want to diffuse the moment. You want to say, that's not a problem.
That makes perfect sense.
It just creates that space to diffuse the moment, because if that's not a problem, is designed to diffuse and open up the dialogue again. If you don't have that phrase, and what happens is you feel compelled to defend yourself. You feel compelled to try and convince them that you're better. And now it's a fight or flight response. So you're defending yourself. We don't want to ever be put in a position, and you know this very well, obviously, in the work that you do, that you want to be in a centered, calm position all along the way, so you're not caught up in their drama, right? And I know this relates so much to what you teach as well. And so when they say to you, we're using somebody else, the first response is, that's not a problem at all. That's perfectly fine. That's no problem at all. Space, breathe. Then you say, I'm just giving you a call to see if you'd be open to some different ideas and insights that you may not have access to now as it relates to de-escalation conflict in the field with your officers. So what I just said was, I'm not looking to replace who you're currently using. I just wanted to see if you'd be open to some different and other insights and perspectives that you may not have access to now. And that usually goes to the response of, oh, well, what do you have is different? See, normally the normal way is try and replace the current provider and say, but you're not doing that. You're going to the side and saying, that's fine. I just want to see if you'd be open to different ideas you may not have access to now. So that should get you a, what do you mean by that? That'll open the door there. The other approach for you is, when you're making that phone call, is not to start with the solution in mind. Like, do you have a program, or do you have training already? Because that's the solution. What I do, if I were you, I'd call and say, regardless of who they were already using, I'd say, are your officers dealing with issues on the ground around de-escalating tensions in scenarios like coming up to the vehicle, whatever, describe the problem and see if they're having that problem. But don't start the conversation with, do you have training to solve the problem already? You just see what I'm trying to say about that?
I do. One of the questions that I have asked is, when they say, oh, our officers are doing a great job with de-escalation, I've said, if you could wave a magic wand and fix anything that's happening out in the field that you don't like, what would that be? And the most common response that I've gotten is, well, I'd like the officers to spend more time explaining to the public why they're doing what they're doing, which is, I know that was one of my things with one of my most common complaints that I got from citizens about officers that I supervised. And the good thing about that is, my follow-on question to that has been, why do you think that they're not spending that time? What help would they need to be able to feel comfortable spending more time? And then there's a myriad of answers, depending on the agency.
Right.
It could be, they feel pressured to get to the next call, they're short-staffed, or things like that don't relate to de-escalation. But there's a few situations that would relate directly to my training. So
you're talking about making a shift.
Yes.
Making a shift from an operational procedure to an explanation of the procedure. Right?
Yes.
And maybe the approach is, if they say to you, that's one of our things we want to solve. So you're talking about teaching your officers how to make the shift from executing a procedure to giving context and explanation to the procedure. Is that right? They go, yeah, exactly. That's the shift we're trying to make. Great. That's exactly what I specialize in making the shift. That's very different than what your approach was originally, which is diffusing, non-conflict. That's very abstract and very hard to sort of get their arms around. But when you specifically identify the exact issue and then you phrase it in a simple way called making the shift from execution to explanation, like in a very few amount of words, you've just narrowed down precisely the exact issue that only you specialize in.
Perfect. I love it.
The precision of this, of what I just gave you, is what will give you the breakthrough. Because I think what could be happening is that you're coming in the front door, describing your training, and they view it as a commodity, as one more of what they already have, a general program on diffusing resistance. Could that be?
Yeah, that makes total sense, and I would agree with that assessment.
Okay,
I think that's the way it is being viewed.
Great. So maybe the answer to this, the breakthrough here for you, is to enter the conversation from now on precisely identifying the exact gap and saying what I just said, which is executing the procedure versus explaining the procedure. That's the shift and gap that we solve for officers in a way that nobody ever has before. That's all that we do. That now makes you a category of one, not a generic provider of the same program everybody else. You're now apples to oranges.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, brilliant as always from you. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for the scenario. Good to see you. We'll speak to you soon.
Always good to see you. And again, thanks for your wisdom, Ari. I appreciate it.
Take care. Take care. Excellent. All right. So those are two great scenarios for Stump the Guru. If you, the show today, if you want to jump in and ask me a question, please go to stumptheguru.com. This is your chance, as we're going to sign off at some point soon, to do that today. I will just comment that what you heard from me there was me taking their scenario and really distilling it down to the most precise element that creates the gap in the mind of the prospect. You really get clarity on what the actual problem is. That's the resistance to having them be open to a solution. That applied to the first scenario around the woman who had an issue with annuities and her mother had a bad experience, and also this issue here with a gentleman who does training for police officers, and he was coming in with more of a generic approach, and I was able to help him precisely identify the exact gap with languaging that really made it simple for the other person to understand how he differentiates himself. And that's really the challenge now, is that we're living in a day and age when most of us are becoming commoditized, our services, our offerings, and we can't differentiate anymore on our product or solution because the market views it as generic, as commoditized. So we have to think about how to change our approach to a trust-based approach with certain languaging elements that provide clarity on solving the problem. And that's what differentiates you, because in many cases, your ideal prospects and clients are not asking themselves, is your solution different? What they're asking themselves is, can I trust you to let you in my world, to understand what we do, to help us solve our problem? And that's really what our mission here is, Unlock the Game, and our business is to help change the whole industry and the whole thinking of selling, to decondition itself away from the notion of overcoming resistance, chasing ghosts, closing sales, all the old techniques that everybody hates and knows, no longer effective in a way to build that deep trust. So we teach a method and a mindset where the goal is to let go of the sale, focus on deep trust with people, to be able to connect with them at a level where they feel that they resonate with you and connect with you. And that's really what the goal here is, that we help people do. And this applies specifically to businesses that are in a low volume, high price point, high trust model. Consultants, advisors, high transaction sales processes, multiple steps. Those are high trust-based relationships. So if you can condense the cycle to a few steps, be crisper in your approach, diffuse the pressure, and avoid rejection, and not only will you make more sales, but you'll live a more productive life and not feel like you're carrying the burden of trying to push through resistance in your daily sales activity. So I want one last call out there. If anybody wants to come on in, ask me a live question, please go to stumptheguru.com, click that link. It'll bring you in. If not, we hope today was valuable for you today. And if you're reviewing this tape from the previous archives, feel free to come back next month and jump in the queue when we start the show. Or you can submit your questions in advance as well. You can go to unlockthegame.com/stumptheguru to do that, to get in the queue ahead of everybody else. If you can't do that, come on live and jump on in, and I should be able to pull you in also. So hope you enjoyed the show today. Have a great day. Signing off. Take care, everybody. Talk to you soon.
I've come up with a way to totally eradicate this whole idea of rejection in sales. If it's over at hello, how the heck are you going to succeed in selling? You've got to rise above that and change your mindset.
Hey, Steve.